They say a man's true power isn't in how much money he stacks, or how many soldiers call him boss. It's in the way a room changes when he walks in. The air stiffens, voices drop, and suddenly everyone's paying attention to one man, like gravity itself bends toward him. For us, that man was Don Marco Vassallo. I knew him long before anyone called him Don. Back then, he was just Marco. Sharp eyes, quick temper, always hustling. We grew up in the same neighborhood, streets that chewed kids up and spat them out in body bags or jail cells. Marco was different, though. Where most of us saw dead ends, he saw opportunity. By the time he was 15, he wasn't running from trouble. He was running the trouble. Numbers, bets, little hustles that put cash in his pocket and food on the table. Me? I was the friend who followed him, not because I was brave, but because Marco made you believe you couldn't lose if you stood beside him. I remember one night in particular, some dive bar lit by a single buzzing neon sign. Marco leaned over a pool table, smoke curling around his head, talking like he owned the joint. He wasn't even old enough to drink, but the men listened. They nodded. They laughed at his jokes. That was Marco's gift, making dangerous men feel like boys again, like they wanted his approval. When we were kids, the older guys in the neighborhood called him the Prince. By 20, he was no prince anymore. He had soldiers, real soldiers, carrying knives and pistols, collecting debts in his name. Nightclubs, backrooms, the kind of places where cash traded hands faster than words, that was his kingdom. And me, I was proud to stand in his shadow.
Proud to be trusted.
He gave me envelopes to deliver, sometimes stacks so thick I thought the seams would tear. Other times, it was whispers, messages passed hand to hand, the kind that could start wars or end them. Marco built his empire the old way, on loyalty and fear. But he wasn't reckless. He punished when he had to, but he rewarded just as much. If you did your job, if you kept your mouth shut, Marco took care of you. We believed in him, maybe even loved him in our own twisted way. The cops. They knew his name, sure, but knowing and proving are two different things. Every time they got close, the case fell apart. Witnesses disappeared, files got lost, and sometimes even the cops themselves found envelopes waiting for them. Marco played the game better than anyone. The 1980s and 90s, that was the Vassallo era. He sat at the head of the table like a king, suits tailored, hair slicked back, a gold watch gleaming on his wrist. When Marco walked into the club, the music seemed to bend to him. People moved aside, waiters rushed over, and women, well, they smiled a certain way. He had that aura.
We controlled the dogs, the card games, the protection rackets.
Even the construction crews paid a slice. If you wanted to open a bar, you paid Marco. If you wanted to throw a fight, you paid Marco. And if you didn't pay Marco, well, you didn't stay in business long enough to regret it. But what I remember most isn't the money. It's the meetings. Those long nights in smoke-filled rooms, soldiers sitting shoulder to shoulder, Marco at the head, cigarette burning low. He'd listen more than he talked. That was his trick. Men respect a boss who listens, even if he already knows what he's going to decide. Still, power is a funny thing.
The eager you climb, the more hands reach for your throat.
I saw it happening, even if Marco didn't want to admit it. Younger guys, hungry, restless. They didn't remember the days when we had nothing. To them, Marco wasn't a savior. He was just an old man holding the keys to the castle. And the rivals, they circled like wolves. Every gang in the city wanted a piece, testing the edges, pushing where they thought Marco was weak. But he wasn't weak. Not yet. It happened in winter. I'll never forget that cold. The kind of cold that bites your bones, makes your breath look like smoke signals in the night. That's when the news broke. A lieutenant, a man who had stood at Marco's side for 20 years, was found dead. Hands tied, a bullet in the skull, dumped in the trunk of a car on the outskirts of town. It was sloppy, too public, too loud. Marco never did sloppy.
The streets lit up with whispers.
Who ordered it? Some said Marco, punishing betrayal. Others said it was a rival crew, framing him.
But he knew the truth the moment uno saw Marco's face.
He didn't order it. He didn't even know about it. The Don looked shaken, like the ground beneath him had shifted. For the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes. He called a meeting, demanded answers, but the room was quiet. Too quiet. That's when I realized this wasn't a message for the lieutenant. It was a message for Marco. And whoever sent it, they were sitting right there at the table with us. The cops moved fast. Wiretaps, raids, subpoenas. Suddenly, everything was unraveling. Guys we thought were solid started flipping. First small-time soldiers, then capos. One by one, they traded silence for deals, until the feds had enough to build a mountain of evidence. Marco's trial was a circus. Reporters packed the hallways, cameras flashing like fireworks. I sat in the back, watching my boss, our Don, sit there in a gray suit that suddenly looked too big for him. He didn't crack, not at first. He held himself like a man carved from stone. But day after day, as witness after witness took the stand, I saw the weight press down on him. Some of those witnesses, men I'd eaten with, laughed with, called brothers. Now they sat across from Marco, pointing fingers, telling the world every secret we'd sworn to bury. The oath of silence, the blood oath, we thought it was unbreakable.
Turns out, it shatters easy when you're staring down 20 years.
The prosecutors painted Marco as a monster, the mastermind of an empire built on fear and blood. Maybe they weren't wrong, but they missed something too. Marco wasn't just a criminal. He was a man who gave us purpose, who gave us a family when the world gave us nothing. That doesn't excuse what we did, but it explains why we followed him so blindly. When the verdict came, it was life.
No parole.
The gavel hit, and just like that, the reign of Don Marco Vassallo was over. These days, I hear he sits in a maximum security cell, gray hair, wrinkled skin, a shadow of the man he once was.
No gold watch, no soldiers at his side, just another old man counting the days.
His empire collapsed, his family scattered, his name reduced to a cautionary tale. And me?
Alive, quiet now. No spotlight, no soldiers, no boss.
Sometimes I walk by those same streets we grew up on, and I swear I can still hear his voice, confident, commanding, larger than life. I think about loyalty, about betrayal, about how quickly everything we built turned to dust. If there's one thing I learned from Marco's rise and fall, it's this: power doesn't last. Not money, not fear, not even loyalty. The only thing that survives is the story. And this is the story of Don Marco Vassallo, the man who ruled like a king and fell like any other man.